All right, we're going to wrap up this sheep industry overview by taking a look at some of the regions in California and how this industry in California almost works to strive for year-round lamb production and to try to make sure we have lamb available year-round. There are several different regions in California that have unique styles to their sheep production. The first is the San Joaquin Valley, and we have the North Sacramento Valley. We have the Imperial Valley, the South Coast, and the North Coast. We have the Siskiyous and up in northwestern California, and the Alturas, Nevada region. So we're going to break down each of these regions and talk about sheep production in that specific area. Let's start with the San Joaquin Valley, or the Central Valley, anywhere like around the Fresno, Bakersfield area. A lot of fine wool crossbred ewes, that's the foundation range ewe, bred to black-faced rams, Suffolk or Hampshire rams. Generally, these lambs hit a spring market, that March to April market, and generally are the major providers for our eastern market in California. There's a lot of large range bands located in the San Joaquin Valley that migrate in the mountains, come down to the valley floor for different types of grazing. The Sacramento Valley is where actually home to Superior Plant in Dixon, California, which is the largest lamb harvest facility west of the Rockies. And generally, you're going to see a lot of fine wool crossbred ewes bred to black-faced rams. That's the typical breeding system used in range production. These lambs are going to be a little bit later. They're going to hit a late spring market. So the San Joaquin Valley lambs were for March and April. Now from April through June, we're going to have Sac Valley lambs coming in. There tends to be some confinement feeding, although that has been declining. But there's still a little bit of confined animal feeding and a lot of pasture-based finishing. There's that niche market for grass-fed lamb. And so there's some good grazing in this region that allows for some of that. In Southern California, the Imperial Valley, somewhat over into Arizona as well, we get a lot of lambs coming from the mountain states, Colorado, Utah, Nevada, Wyoming, and that's where we're going to finish them on the irrigated pastures, or irrigated alfalfa pastures specifically. There's a long growing season in that area of California. And a lot of times these lambs are called old croppers because they're older than a lot of the other lamb coming in, because they were born maybe even in the San Joaquin Valley, and they come down and graze in the winter. They rotate through. They're going to be a little bit older, but be able to finish on alfalfa and kind of constitute some of that grass-fed type product. These are generally going to be marketed in January and February, and just to kind of just in time to make that to fit that winter lamb need that we have in California. The South Coast generally markets around the same time as the Sac Valley, which is our region, April to June. They have a lot of climate variability from a very wet climate to extremely dry. They've got great feed, but it is pretty rough terrain. So there tends to be a lot of farm flocks. A lot of our club lambs are down in that South Coast region, San Luis Obispo, and around that area. The North Coast, they are able to market later into the summer. And they have a very wet climate and very good grass. So we're talking Santa Rosa, Petaluma, and all in that region. Very good grazing, very good pasture management. But it makes for a little bit longer period to market, but they're also able to be very competitive in any niche market, such as grass-fed lamb, or direct marketing lamb straight from the farm to the consumer. And so definitely a unique production system in that North Coast region. The Siskiyous is up in the Wairika, Montague area, and these lambs tend to be marketed in the fall, in September. And so there's pretty good irrigated pasture as long as you get rainfall and have a snowpack to rely on. And there's quite a few farm flocks and project lambs and club lambs up in that area as well. And finally, the last region is northeastern California and northwestern Nevada. These lambs fill in the fall market and tend to be range flocks, and many trail the lambs. It goes back to some of the migratory grazing patterns on public lands. They'll trail those sheep to Nevada and back and follow the feed around using public grazing. And so between all of these different regions, what we find out is that we are able to have lamb. January and February was from the Imperial Valley region. March and April is the San Joaquin Valley. April into June, that's where we're starting to get into the North Coast, or the South Coast and that area as well, the North Coast and the Sacramento Valley, and then getting into that late summer, more North Coast into Wairika and the Wairika and Siskiyous area, and then into the fall with northeastern California and Nevada. So these regions, we can kind of work together to be able to use the climatic diversity that California offers and to create year-round lamb for our consumers. That wraps up our sheep industry overview and for this first week of the semester.